Good morning, good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all our webinar attendees today. I am Pankaj Bagzai, your host and MC for today's session titled A Blueprint for Analytics and Data Warehouse Transformation to the Cloud.
A quick introduction to Impetus. We were established in 1991 and headquartered in Los Gatos, California. And we are focused on transforming the data and analytics lifecycle for large enterprises from ingest and helping them from ingest to consumption use cases. For about more than a decade already, we have been the partner of choice for several Fortune 500 enterprises. We provide products and services for platform modernization, unification of data sources, self-service, and advanced analytics, where our products and services include industry's only platform for automated conversion of legacy data warehouses and ETL end-to-end to a cloud or big data environment. You'll be witnessing some of glimpse of that solution today in our session. Another product we have is a self-service visual platform for ETL and advanced analytics on Apache Spark. And then we also provide full lifecycle services for cloud enablement, big data technology implementation, and advanced analytics, including technology strategy, solution architecture, development, and support. So in all ways, Impetus is focused on enabling a unified, clear, and present view for the modern intelligent enterprise. So quick look at today's agenda. The first thing is why do enterprises need the transformation to cloud? And then what are the roadblocks or some of the challenges that enterprises are facing today? How can this journey of transformation to the cloud be managed efficiently? And then we'll also look at how to manage an end-to-end transformation to the cloud. And then, of course, the primary subject for today is enabling analytics on the cloud once you're there. We are going to run a poll today for our audience. You'll see the poll question come up on the WebEx console, and the poll will remain open for the remainder of this webinar session. And we'll be displaying the results of the poll at the end of our session today. The poll, as you can see on your screen now, what are some of the measures for cloud analytics platform maturity that you're using? And the options that you can see on the screen are the ROI, security, data quality, operational excellence, performance, or all of the above. You can select one or more options or maybe all of the above. All of these options apply to you. So moving on, a brief introduction to our speakers today. Chetan Kalanki, Senior Director of Cloud and Big Data Engineering at Impetus, has been working very closely with our clients and customers to achieve their cloud and big data missions through innovative technology solutions. He's very passionate about creating fully empowered high-performance teams and has been responsible for creating scalable and effective big data solutions and developing accelerators around these areas. Our second speaker is Barry Tuthill, our VP of Field Operations for North America. Barry is an integral part in driving business growth in the North America region for Impetus. He's very customer-focused and focused on solutions and strategies for helping organizations analyze the project's ROI by articulating business investments and its value. So moving on, let's first look at what's the need for transforming your enterprise workloads to the cloud. And what's the motivation for the enterprise today to move to the cloud, leaving behind their on-premise approach? As you would probably have read or know already, I'm sharing a Forbes prediction here that by 2020, 83% of enterprise workloads will be in the cloud. And this shouldn't be a surprise to most of us on this session today, as enterprises tend to choose cloud over on-premise deployments because many reasons such as flexibility, reduced overall cost of ownership, and many more, which we'll be discussing further in detail. But more so, cloud has revolutionized the way we acquire, validate, store, process, and consume data and analytics today. So now let's quickly look at the current state for data warehouses in the enterprise. Clearly, the data warehouses have been choking under the abundance of variety of data sources, which also includes massive streaming sources such as IoT, social media, and many more which are mostly unstructured or semi-structured. The total cost of ownership and operations for on-premise infrastructure and processing is multifold as compared to the cost for workloads over cloud for a similar storage and processing capacity. And then there is a huge dependency of business on IT folks for analytics and reporting, which lacks self-service totally. Now let's have a look at the transformation motivations in detail. It's obviously needed for scalability, which deals with adaptability, extensibility, and more so, it's needed for speed, where you need to be ahead of the competition by generating more insightful data faster than others in the industry can. It's almost existential now. Mitigating bottlenecks and inefficiencies, expanding on the business need as per the demand while still remaining affordable. Then there's the concept of future-proofing, where you need to optimize the scale that allows staying relevant and on the path to your objectives at all times. Automation, where you need to be able to respond to dynamic demands on the fly, and you also got to be relevant. You also get to take care of relevance of data, be able to assess where there is what is there over time, and then update as required. Then on the scalability front, another factor is business enablement, by making it possible to grow and shrink in the way that is best for the current conditions, so that scalability is obviously a business enabler there. The second thing that you see there is flexibility, where you can, of course, required to quickly meet the business demands. And cloud computing obviously allows the enterprise and the users to be more flexible both in and out of the workplace, especially the employees, where the employees can access files using web-enabled devices such as smartphones, laptops, and notebooks anywhere they require. The other thing that you see on the screen is the reduced total cost of ownership, where you have a lower cost upfront. You can predict cost over time. You can plan for not having any hardware or server investments, go on the fly, pay as you go, as whatever you need or whatever you use, and then it's all quick and easy. It's almost done by the cloud vendor. You don't have to worry about many things. Obviously, the premise for today's topic, the next thing is advanced analytics, where you need to enable advanced analytics, which typically deals with newer technologies such as machine learning and artificial intelligence, semantic analysis, visualizations, and even neural networks, where it empowers to make reliable predictions and generate actionable BI insights at a much deeper level. Last but not the least, it's about governed self-service, where modern self-service BI and analytics has shown true potential to drive enterprise transformation by empowering the people to answer their own questions on top of trusted, secure data. Today's businesses actually want instant insights out of their real-time data. They can't wait on IT teams to generate insights. So that's so much more required now. Moving on, let's look at what do IT teams have to deal with and what are sometimes skeptical about when they plan for a data warehouse transformation. First, at the business level, this is the time to market consideration and the time to value. It's a top concern. You need a very quick turnaround without any end user disruption. There is always that risk and uncertainty where you need to mitigate risks associated with manual migration, which is too time consuming, mostly error prone, because even a slight tweak in the business logic of a procedure can throw you out of the way and result in non-meaningful insights. So you don't want that ever. And then you need to be sure of the offload program and a migration strategy to certain on aspects like whether you want to do as-is migration or there is some re-engineering or total re-engineering that you're planning. Then about not having a predefined ROI is another challenge where if there is no definitive ROI and calculated ROI post-migration, still comes up as a big roadblock. Um, another thing is migration blueprint, where this is one of the foremost technical challenge. Now we're looking at the technical challenges, and it is to be able to provide the existing inventory of workloads with a very quick turnaround and then creating a migration blueprint. This is the foremost technical challenge that IT teams have been facing while dealing with transformation, and this typically would involve identifying the right workloads to transform, including applications, users, schemas, and tables. This would actually, in most of the cases, require identifying the interdependencies among the workloads where one is dependent on the other, and that dependent workload also needs to be transformed. Some other aspects include identifying the complexity of workloads, identifying efficient orchestration engine, and also defining the performance strategy. Another thing is our code transformation, which with very scarce skills for advanced technology stacks in the modern environment, transforming the code and handling the data store specific nuances is another huge challenge, which is a major roadblock. And a few things to consider for that are creating equivalent query patterns, query constructs, functions, and things like that. Then there's the need for stitching and orchestration of converted code on the new platform. And in most cases, you would be dealing with transformation of different type of workloads, because there are always a good mix of workloads involved. And the last thing there on the technical front is validation, where the transformed code and business logic is a massive challenge, as transformed queries should respond to query conditions as is and retrieve the data accordingly. This typically includes cell-by-cell validation at a query level, and also root cause identification in case of a mismatch. So, having seen this, obviously, there are many more challenges that are related to parallel execution of workloads, and then there is auditing and notification required. There is failure handling that you need to address, and things like log aggregation at a centralized location. But we can't go into detail level. That's not the premise of the session today. Let's quickly now delve into how to begin, or how does an efficient transformation or a modernization journey look like today. And for that, I'd like to invite our first speaker for today, Barry Tuthill, a VP of Field Operations, who's been working very closely with several customers in this journey. So Barry, over to you.
Thanks, Pankaj. Quick update to what Pankaj has said. I've been actually talking to hundreds and hundreds of customers about this, definitely more than several. So I think every enterprise out there in the Fortune 1000 is looking at the cloud and how do they enable analytics on the cloud to get a lot of the business benefits that Pankaj had mentioned. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've seen as far as what an efficient transformation and modernization journey really looks like. But before we get to that, I think it's I always like to throw up this eye chart, because it certainly gives us a sense of how complex the data landscape is. Now, we've seen a lot of these technologies kind of come and go over the years, and this isn't even an all-encompassing list. But, really the challenge becomes, how do you take all these complex legacy technologies and bring them to the cloud to get the benefits of what Pankaj had mentioned? Because we know what enterprises want. They want elasticity. They want business flexibility. They want these modern analytical capabilities in just a much more simple and manageable cloud world. So, to really make this a reality, you need to start with a very careful evaluation and assess the different options that not only can be moved to the cloud, but then looking at, hey, what is the right cloud provider or providers? What are the various services that these cloud providers have? And then ultimately tying back those capabilities with, the use cases and the business objectives of the enterprise. So, Impetus has been working with a lot of customers, along these lines to help them, evaluate what makes the most sense as they move forward in this cloud journey. So I mentioned the word evaluation, and that's really where it starts, and it goes on to this phase, the evolve phase. But going through each one, the evaluate phase, first we need to understand, and evaluate how cloud transformation ties into corporate business objectives. Then need to dig into and understand the legacy platforms, applications, end user requirements, SLA needs. And then after that, we need to dig in even deeper and really get a deep profile of the existing inventory of workloads. And as Pankaj had mentioned, the dependencies on other upstream and downstream processes and systems. Also in this phase, we want to start evaluating, what are the options for the target state in the cloud? What are the various services that we should be using? So that's really step one. Step two is the planning phase, and this is where we create that migration blueprint. But to create this in an efficient and effective way, enterprises need automation, they need accelerators, they need support to help identify how we right-size applications and workloads into the right, cloud service. The next step is the execute phase. This is where the actual transformation of the data warehouse and the workloads happens. This is where, the transformation project is executed, and then it's evaluated against the defined business goals and expected outcomes and other success criteria mapped out. The key thing with this execute phase and within migration is this needs to be agile. You need to be able to take the learnings from each milestone in this project and be able to take those learnings to gain further acceleration in your process. And then finally, you've got the evolve stage. And this is where you've taken your existing platforms, you've moved them to the cloud, they're in production, but you don't want to stop there, right? There's the opportunity where you can take what you've moved over and you can look at ways to further optimize leveraging the cloud capabilities. You can look at new applications and use cases on the cloud, leveraging that foundation that you've created. So enterprises have a lot of different options in the cloud space from a strategy perspective. You could go more of an infrastructure as a service route where you've got the servers, you've got storage, the networking, that's all taken care of by the vendor. You can go the platform as a service route where you're getting additional capabilities from an OS and middleware perspective that are taken care of by the vendor. And then you've got the software as a service type option where you've got additional data and applications that are provided by the vendor. And there are advantages and disadvantages of each. And this is, kind of things that you talk about and evaluate during that evaluation stage. Excuse me. And then you've got different, deployment models that enterprises can consider. You can consider on-premise deployment. You can consider a multi-cloud environment. You could consider a hybrid environment where you've got some stuff on-premise and some stuff in the cloud, and you see that a lot in financial services institution where they're trying to protect confidential data. So, again, these are just more, very high-level, decisions that need to be made, but obviously very complex before you even get into the next phase where you're actually going through transformation and migration. So, how do you plan? So first, you need to identify through a thorough evaluation based on the enterprise's needs and based on the various cloud options that are available. Figure out the most appropriate technology stack. You need to identify that and identify that based on the particular use cases and the type of workloads that you have. Then we need to benchmark. So looking at the shortlisted technologies, benchmark them against each other based on a variety of different capabilities. And then finally, you make that final decision based on, data and the data points that you've gathered through this whole evaluation stage. And, depending on the business goals and, the objectives, these decision criteria might be, slightly different. So, some may be very performance-centric, ensuring that, SLAs for the ETL and reporting is made. Some of it may be more cost-driven. And then there's, many of other things that you need to think about. Do you want to go open source versus leveraging cloud-native tools? So, using Spark versus, some of the native services. The skill sets that are available in the market. Will you be able to find the needed people for your go-forward architecture? Ease of use. If multi-cloud is important to you, portability. How can you move things across different cloud environments? So, a lot of different things that you need to consider, as you go through this planning and decision process. And then finally, right, the idea here is to automate as much as possible. I mean, the worst case scenario is taking on this type of initiative through a brute force type effort, right? Just kind of throwing bodies at the problem to move the project forward. So, look for options to automate so you can simplify and accelerate as much as possible. Okay, so why automate, right? Obviously, customers want to kind of move forward to this new cloud architecture as fast as possible. So you have, the benefits of accelerated time to market. So you can do things like automatically transforming the data warehouse, business logic, the ETL code, reports, etc. So automate that as much as possible so you avoid, kind of having folks manually doing that, which, again, is very time-consuming. It's risky. It's error-prone. So definitely you want to accelerate through automation. You want to reduce the complexity, and you can reduce that complexity through automating as much of that code transformation process as possible. So, kind of getting into the, details when you look at, specific patterns within the enterprise data warehouses, different functions, keywords, query constructs, all types of those things. When you look at things like recursive, macros, stored procedures, and things of that nature. So how do you handle all these things in a more automated and efficient way in your new target environment? Skill sets, so bridging the skill sets from the legacy world, where they've been working in a certain way for the past, 15, 20 years to a, modern cloud architecture. So automating, accelerating that process allows your employees to spend more time on building out those skill sets for the new target environment. And then finally, optimizing end-to-end movement. So, accelerating the migration and moving all of those workloads to the cloud, but not in kind of a lift and shift type manner, but really in a manner where, as we're automating, accelerating, we're also optimizing those workloads for the cloud as well. All right, so that's kind of talking about some of the things you need to consider from, an evaluation and planning perspective, and, starting to set the stage for automation. So really, how do you execute an efficient transformation journey? And this really gets into Impetus and some of the capabilities that we've built within our organization to help our customers accelerate this process. So Impetus Workload Transformation is a tooling, a set of tools, utilities, and accelerators that allow us to move customers faster down this journey. And we go through a four-step process. We often call it a 4-click paradigm. And it's listed here on this slide. So we start with assess. So this allows us to leverage our tooling to really dig into the data warehouse environment, understand the different applications, the capacity needs across these different applications, end user requirements, complexity of the workloads and applications, and also the interdependencies of these different workloads with other, solutions that are part of the, the mix there, like the ETL tools. So understanding how the dependencies across ETL to the data warehouse to the end reports to the users. So we've got a number of capabilities to help customers really automatically identify, this type of information. The next step is transform. So this is where we leverage the Impetus transformation engine to help our customers accelerate the code transformation process. So, we take all the SQL and, the BTEX and the ETL jobs and run those through this transformation engine and have the ability to automatically produce, a corresponding workload or job for the target environment. And it's not just a lift and shift or a one-to-one translation. It's really intelligent enough to really look at the syntax of your code and optimize on the fly. So what comes out of the engine is optimized for that target environment. The third step is validate. So along the way, automating data validation, schema validation, metadata, et cetera. So you're not having to do that manually or after the fact, right? So we've got all of this automation to validate stuff as part of the process or migration pipeline. And then finally, execution, where we're able to take this validated and converted code and automatically execute it against that target environment. Here's kind of visually what this looks like and what I just described there, where the workload transformation tool has the ability to take all of these different sources on your left, and that's not an exhaustive list. I mean, there's much more than we do than what we've just shown here, but take all these, common data warehouses, databases, ETL tools, and automatically convert them to run on, the target side, which is on your right-hand side. So whether that's AWS or Azure or Google, and also, being able to pinpoint what sources need to go to what target services. So if it's Azure Databricks or it's Azure SQL Data Warehouse, Google Dataproc or BigQuery, the intelligence in our engine is built to be able to support kind of the dynamic nature of the enterprise architecture today and kind of the different services that are delivered through these cloud providers. Again, the core of the engine there in the beginning is again, this transformation engine. So it's a learning engine, so it's not static in nature. So I mentioned a migration, the execution of a migration project needs to be agile. Right? And what I mean by that in context of this solution is for us to be able to come in and say, as we identify different patterns within your legacy code environment, to be able to be very agile in our ability to, if there are new patterns, things that our engine hasn't seen before, be able to tie those patterns into the engine so we give that value to our customers of further automation over the life of the transformation journey. So once you've been able to execute this this transformation process, and you're able to do it in an automated and an efficient way, then you've got to your end state, right, where you have your transformed analytics layer. You've got optimized applications that are purpose-built and ready to go in that cloud environment. You've got a microservices architecture that's been transformed and built to be kind of loosely coupled services. So moving forward, they're independent, easily maintainable, testable, and getting the value of that type of an architecture. You move to that pay, for use versus, the traditional perpetual license where you're paying for peak times. You get the benefits of rapid prototyping in that environment because you've got that elasticity and flexibility of these cloud platforms. You get to leverage the best-in-class services and analytical capabilities that are being provided by the cloud vendors who are investing very heavily into the services that they have for their customers. And of course, you're driving that operational and efficiency, that end state and business objective that every customer is trying to get to. Finally, my last slide here, and I'll stop talking. The value add of Impetus workload transformation. We've got 70 to 90% automation. So when you look at the kind of the total workloads that need to be transformed, we can help you automate a really significant portion of that. We'll help you maximize, your ROI, so you'll be able to get to your target state a lot faster, get the advantages of the lower cost cloud infrastructure, allow you to move away from the expensive monolithic legacy applications faster and free up that maintenance stream. It's fast, it's risk-free. I always talk to customers about, doing this in a pure brute force manual way is very risky because, you're depending on the scope of the project, you could have 50 to 100 different resources working on these types of projects, all kind of working in their silos, doing different things. So it's definitely risky, if you think of approaching it that way when we're talking about business critical applications that have been around for the past 10, 15 years that business users need. And finally, insurance. So we'll ensure that this end-to-end transformation is seamless for our customer and accelerated. And then, of course, future readiness. So, by leveraging our solution, we've moved you to this cloud environment a lot faster, and you're future ready in the cloud and moving forward. So with that, I'm going to stop and pass it back over to either Chitin or Pankaj.
Thanks, Barry. Hello, everyone. I'm Chetan Kalanki. I'm Senior Director of Big Data and Cloud Engineering at Impetus. I will give a very quick one-line intro of myself. So I directly work with some of the largest enterprises in their big data and cloud transformation journey. And as part of those journeys, I'm also responsible for creating accelerators, which brings tremendous value, velocity, and ease of the transformation on cloud and big data. So now for the last few slides, we have understood the cloud landscape and the overall journey of migration of data warehouse to cloud, and how some of the accelerators like Workload Transformation Toolkit can prove to be the game changer in this migration. Let's understand, how do you enable analytics on cloud, and what are the various dimensions someone will have to consider creating and establishing an analytics platform for an enterprise on cloud. Now, one probably could say
that considering that the migration toolkit has been used and the data and the workloads have been migrated onto the cloud, and the data is already present on the cloud data warehouses, one can just put a couple of business intelligence solutions and deliver the analytics. But is that really possible? And is it really sufficient? Those are the questions those arise. And definitely, I think it is possible, but will not be sufficient at all. My goal in this webinar is to talk about what are the key drivers to harness the power of cloud in delivering analytics rather than looking at specific technologies or the use cases. So let's understand what are the key expectations from analytics platform on cloud. But before we go there, let's understand what drives these expectations. On this slide, you will see three different dimensions: people, technology, and process. These three dimensions are core to any of the system. People who drive the needs of the innovation, they have specific expectations from any of the solutions, and they are trying to capitalize on the opportunities that exist in the business. They leverage technology to create solutions and fulfill against those opportunities. Once solutions are created, they have to be integrated as part of the business process, which can then be leveraged back by the people so that they can generate the optimal result required for that business. But this is the whole cycle. Once someone reaches to one level of maturity, it never stops. He needs to move to the next level of maturity. And I'm bringing this picture because when someone is on cloud and what cloud brings onto the table, the journey of evolution will be continuous and platform will always evolve. Cloud opens up the whole spectrum of opportunities. Earlier, which used to be far-fetched goals, seems to be the need now. Now you can integrate with the newer data sources, systems, and applications like never before. You can run parallel workloads and have ability to expand your processing power on demand. You may be driving your business processes from being manual to being completely autonomous. Now we need to consider all the three dimensions that I am showing here all the time for creating a robust analytics platform on cloud. Now let's understand the key expectations from analytics platform on cloud. These expectations would help us understand what are the key considerations that we have to make while creating a robust cloud infrastructure and to enable analytics on cloud. First expectation, the very first expectation here is access to data, to any data I want and when I want. In order to make data-driven decisions, access to variety of information is a must. Many organizations still have this data distributed across a variety of business units and data warehouses. And to do the right analytics, it hinders. Essentially, it creates delays. Sometimes you get partial data. So one of the key considerations that should be there, or the requirement that we should consider, is version data with seamless access mechanism on cloud. The very second expectation from an analytics platform on cloud is responsiveness to change. Systems do change. And along with the systems, data sources change. Many of the time, even if data sources doesn't change, data type change, or the variety of the data might change. But the last thing that one wants to be changed or one wants to see being changed is the platform or the code. This clearly demands the applications of the right design patterns and practices. This also means that we are using the right tools, right accelerators to be responsive to all these changes that are happening. The third major expectations from the analytic platform on cloud is interactive and actionable insights. If you look at the analytics, people may take it as synonymous to the dashboards. But dashboards, or the era of dashboard, is gone. And if not completely gone, it is definitely disappearing. That does not mean that we don't need business intelligence. But the way in which the analytics is done has transformed. Take an example of Google Maps. If someone is planning to drive to his office, and think about Google starts sending a report with all the traffic information and congestion details as part of a report to that driver. And there could be a functionality to drag and drop and slice and dice that report and still look at the traffic condition. But is that really useful? No, it is not. It is definitely not useful. So what Google is doing in this case is it is still leveraging all that information and same analytics, but it is integrating it in a manner that it is interactive and actionable, so that user gets which route he can take, what is the best route, what are the alternate routes, and in case there is an issue happens on the first route, Google automatically helps rerouting it to an alternate route. And I'm pointing out this very, very simple example because the industry is changing, the dimension of analytics is changing. Rather than it being more of report-based, dashboard-based analytics, it is becoming more of responsive analytics, and to a level that it is becoming more autonomous. The next expectation from an analytics platform on cloud is intelligence embedded in the business. Any of the analytics sitting outside of the business processes will be of no use. And I can give a number of examples, but just look at the example of Google Maps. If Uber had to use the Google Map and use the same analytics, and it would have referred that just go and look at the Google Maps, instead of looking at the Uber app, it would have been of no use. So that is where the intelligence embedded into the business process is most important. The final expectation from the analytics platform on cloud is the ROI. While ROI from the cloud computing perspective can be confusing, because when we look at on-prem versus when we look at cloud, people look at CapEx and OpEx, right? So while on cloud, the operational cost could be higher, but that is not the only thing that people should measure. There are other dimensions like innovation, agility, time to market, which also comes under the consideration, and those needs to be measured to calculate the right ROI from the analytics platform on cloud. Generally, we can see all of the above various parameters that one need to consider for measuring the ROI. One of the example studies shows that typical migration to cloud starts showing positive ROIs when at least 25 to 40% of the workloads have been migrated to cloud. Now, I took some time on this particular slide so that we understand the expectations of the cloud, of the analytics platform on cloud. Now, let's look at the key considerations, right? What we have to consider while fulfilling these expectations. Reliability. Reliability is a key consideration. It is not only about responding to the failure on the system processes or services level, but even from the data perspective. Consider that the system uses a bunch of ETL pipelines to process and load the data, and the process data is stored for the analytics consumption. And now someone is trying to bring more real-time based, machine learning analytics, which needs the historical data to be referred. Now, if someone would have just stored the process data and discarded the raw data, then it would have the system or the analytics generated by the system won't be reliable at all. So first consideration is the reliability. The second consideration is security and governance. I'll talk a little bit more about that over the next slide. Third consideration is the cost optimization, where ability to run the system and deliver business value at the lowest price is topmost important. People can apply different techniques like going serverless or using the right resources. For example, in case of AWS, using the spot fleets versus using on-demand instances, or using transient clusters versus using persistent clusters, and things like that. People can apply a number of techniques for cost optimization. The next consideration is performance efficiency, and then the operational excellence, where people need to make sure that operational excellence is in place, not even to generate the analytics, but while generating the analytics, the system has that level of operational excellence. I'll give a quick example. Consider that there is a credit card company which is trying to generate certain reports and distribute to the merchants before the festival season. And if those reports are delayed in the delivery, they will be of no use. So someone will also have to build the analytics and intelligence as part of the platform, as part of the operations, so that they can look at their jobs, how they are processing, what is the queue, how they can tune the overall platform and the cluster so that the SLAs on those reports can be achieved. Let's quickly look at the security considerations. Security has three different aspects. It can be looked at from infrastructure, data, and application perspective, but a generic theme that has to be looked at in building the analytics platform on cloud is looking at three different dimensions: how you protect the system, how you detect the anomalies, and how you respond to those anomalies effectively. So I'm talking about various measures here. To protect the system, you have to take n number of measures. To detect the anomalies, you have to take n number of measures. And then finally, to respond effectively, you have to have SLAs, KPIs defined so that you can respond to those anomalies. Even on the data governance side, if you look at, if you're profiling the data or if you're looking at the data quality, you need to have the right data quality matrices for different types of applications and system needs. You have to ensure that you're continuously measuring those data qualities. You are looking at those reports, you are looking at those scores, you are triaging some of the data, you are taking actions on top of data. So each and every topic that is listed here or point listed here, or I have shown in each of the previous slides, needs different parameters or measures that we have to set from the platform standpoint. If we don't have the measures in place, we will not be able to, if we don't have the right measures and metrics in place, we will not be able to look at where we are on the analytics platform and where this platform needs to be evolved. So ultimately, it comes down to, again, the three angles of people, process, and technology, whether we talk about just the operational governance or the overall evolution of an analytics platform. We need to define the different measures and around people, how the system will be used, around the processes, how it is impacting the processes, and how about the technology, whether it could be the ROIs or the cost or reliability or performance or could be anything. So unless we define the appropriate measures, we will not be able to evolve the analytics platform on cloud. In the nutshell, if I say here, cloud is all about less handcrafting, but more about leveraging the platforms and delivering the value and innovation for businesses through measurement of the right KPIs. Thus, to enable robust analytics platform, essentially it means defining the key objectives of that cloud platform, cloud analytics platform, declaring the key measures with respect to key considerations, and driving continuous change through measuring these or looking at these matrices. So that is where the whole, we can enable the robust analytics platform. Now, how Impetus could help on this one? So we have helped customers on all the different clouds, including AWS, Microsoft Azure, and GCP, as well as Salesforce. Right from advisory services, defining their overall strategy, helping them calculate the total cost of ownership, defining end-to-end architecture, and then realizing that platform on the cloud. Alongside, we have helped them with the best practices around security, data governance, helping them with the system automation, making system more on-demand and scalable, and with DevOps and maintenance and administration services. So essentially, people who don't know how they should go about cloud, to the point that they are evolving and optimizing their cloud infrastructures, we have helped n number of enterprises with that. With that said, I will stop my part of the presentation, and I will request Pankaj to take over.
Thank you, Chetan and Barry. That was a very, very good summary of what can be achieved to sustain and how sustenance can be achieved for analytics on the cloud. A quick recall of the audience on the poll results that you can see there on your screen. Clearly, the results as they come in, the ROI and security have been 9% each, and data quality and operational excellence close to just about 20%, and then performance in the range of 9% again. So those are the survey results of what people are using to measure the maturity of analytics in the cloud. We just have about time for a couple questions for the time that we have left today. One of the questions, I think Barry or Chetan, anybody can take it. How do you help transform stored procedure, for instance, in a Netezza PLSQL? I think Barry, you can take it. How do you help transform a stored procedure in Netezza PLSQL? Can your tool do that?
Yeah, we approach it the same way we approach any other workload. So the tooling is already been built out to support Netezza stored procedures. So we can take those, we run them through our transformation engine. We can convert that to, if you want to move to Spark, for example, convert that to a Spark job that could run in any of those cloud services or your Hadoop data lake. See that stuff, the stored procedures and Netezza, we've been doing that for quite some time.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Another question is that can you demonstrate some quick success with data lake on the cloud, and how can one manage the demands of business, as at many times it does not seem possible from a timeline perspective. The timelines are very strict. So can you share more on that?
Sure. So many of the time, as I understand this question, many of the time people are new onto the big data side of the thing, and they are first time setting up the data lake on cloud. And when they want to go to the cloud, and I'm looking at this question again, business wants to see how the overall transformation will look like, what data lake will look like, and whether it will really add the value or not. So I think the best way to approach this situation is leveraging some of the accelerators. There are accelerators that are offered by cloud providers. At the same time, there are accelerators which, for example, Impetus offers, like single-click data lake creation solutions, where people can create the data lake within few clicks, have that up and running with security, data governance, data lineage, everything up and running along with some of the sample workloads running, so that can be shown to the business, and business can be enrolled, and overall journey can be fastened up.
Yeah, thank you, Chetan. I think I'll just quickly read a couple of the questions that have come in. We may not have time to address all of them. Someone from the audience wants to know which part of the transformation has been the most difficult to transform in the tool that we saw. I think we can respond to that on email. Another question is, there was something that was listed on the Salesforce as one of the clouds. Have you done any thing on the Salesforce implementation or multi-cloud implementation using Salesforce and Azure? So, Chetan, I think that you can take that.
Sure. So especially Salesforce and another cloud is it's quite a combination, because Salesforce is meant for specific purposes of building the sales-focused apps, but with the evolution of the technology, Salesforce do support many of the platforms like MuleSoft and Heroku, where people are building the apps and whatnot. But biggest challenge that people face there is the cost of storage of the data, and how they do cross-org analytics on the Salesforce. So that is where, obviously, we have helped many customers to do Salesforce plus AWS kind of multi-cloud solutions, where they have created data lakes on AWS cloud, have done two-way syncing between the Salesforce and AWS, and only kept the limited data on Salesforce so that they can optimally manage the cost and back it up with the powerful analytics that they could do on AWS. So yes.
Sure. Thank you, Chetan.
The next question we have is, how is the transformation from ETL tools like Data Stage, Informatica, and others is done with the business logic split between SQL or database or ETL tools? Barry, can you take that one?
Yeah.
Hey, hi, Pankaj.
Trying to get myself off.
Sorry, Barry.
Yeah, so from an ETL perspective, certainly the transformation, can be complex. I think that the first step to figure out how to transform ETL is first figuring out what exactly you want that target to be. I mentioned in the webinar about native services versus open source, right? So, the first decision you need to make is, do you want to migrate this to more of a Spark-based workflow, or would you rather migrate to the native ETL type services within the cloud? So that's the first step. You can migrate legacy ETL tools to like a Azure Data Factory or an AWS Glue, or to Spark and have that running in the Cloud Data Lake or in a Databricks type of environment, something like that. So from a pure transformation perspective, Impetus tooling covers all of that. So part of the tool enables you to kind of run the legacy ETL code through the workload transformation engine and automatically produce either a Spark-based framework or a framework that can easily be imported into the Data Factory or AWS Glue type of environment where you can then visually manage and manipulate it from there. So it's a big topic. Happy to follow up and we can talk more about it with whoever had that question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Barry. I think there are a couple more questions. Somebody wants to know what kind of data analytics platforms are available on the cloud and how to use them. Another question is about how can one migrate Tableau dashboards to the cloud and what is the procedure for that. I think in some of the other ways we have addressed some part of that or those questions, and there are more that are still coming in, but we are short of our scheduled time. I just want to remind the audience that any questions that were not answered on this webinar session live today will be answered over email. And I have also opened a quick feedback poll, which is right now showing up on your WebEx console. Please do provide feedback for today's session, and we'll be happy to connect and respond to any other questions you may have. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you.